Should you include supporting letters, or what we sometimes call affidavits, from friends and family in your marriage adjustment of status case?
In this video, we're going to talk about how important letters of support are and whether you should include them with your application.
We will make sure to cover how many letters to include, what exactly your family or friends should mention in those letters, and how to properly notarize them, since that's a very important part.
And make sure to watch to the end, where we're going to discuss whether you should include copies or original letters with your application.
If you're new to our channel, welcome. My name is Margarita.
My name is Dixon.
And we're two immigration attorneys.
On this channel, we share new videos weekly with practical tips and tricks on how to handle your own marriage adjustment of status.
First, you might be wondering how important letters of support actually are.
These letters are important and should be included with your application, especially if your marriage and/or relationship is relatively new, or you just don't have much evidence outside of pictures and maybe a few other things.
For instance, if you don't have much financial evidence together, you should 100% include these letters with your application.
Inside our program, we encourage couples to submit these irrespective of their situation, to just have a more well-rounded application.
This is especially useful to show that other people are aware of your relationship and you are acting like a married couple around your friends and family.
One of the questions the USCIS officers often ask at the interview is, hey, are your family members and friends aware of your relationship/marriage?
By providing these letters ahead of time, you're answering this question without it being asked.
That's why you would always want to include pictures with others in them, as well as to answer that same question. What a great way to potentially waive your interview and simply receive your green card in the mail.
And if you're curious how you could get your interview waived, you can watch this video where we share some success stories of the members of our program and what they did to get their green card interview waived and get their green card faster.
Alternatively, you can save yourself a ton of time and stress and just join our program from the start, where we will guide you from right now all the way until you naturalize.
Get our step-by-step approach, support from us, and access to our private immigrant community by applying through the link in the description below.
But going back to these letters of support, obviously the quality and quantity of these letters plays a major role as well. So that brings us to our next point,
which is how many affidavits or letters from friends and family should you include? We generally recommend including 3 to 4 letters total.
And make sure it doesn't come from just one side of the family. Meaning, since it's the two of you, make sure to include letters from both sides of the family, and make sure to ask your friends to write a letter as well, especially if you often spend time together or if they, attended your wedding.
The biggest question couples usually have is, but what exactly to include in those letters?
First and foremost, ask them to include their full name, address, and contact information, such as a phone number. Plus, they should include their date and place of birth and relationship to you.
We will also talk about including their ID and notarizing the letter, but just later in this video.
As far as what to write, they need to describe how they know you and your spouse. How do they know you as a couple, and how do you spend time together?
They can't just say, hey, this is such a sweet couple and I've known them for a few months. No, they need to describe your relationship, what knowledge they have about you guys, and how they know you as a couple.
If, let's say, they know you guys travel together, or maybe they've been over to your house for dinner, or if it's from family members who attended your wedding, they can describe that wedding. Things like that. But
make sure it's just a one-page letter. Very, very, very important. Nothing fancy and straight to the point. Remember, the USCIS officers are super loaded with cases and they simply don't have time to read an essay.
Help them help you by including only the most essential information. And that applies to your entire application, not just these letters of support.
Another question we often get is, but what if my foreign spouse's family is not in the US, but they, let's say, attended our wedding and we spent a lot of time together? How would we go about including their letters?
In this case, you can still ask your family members to write these letters, sign them, and mail them to you. But if they live on the other continent, that might not be super practical.
In these cases, we always encourage couples to still get those letters, but in electronic format. For instance, your mom overseas can write a letter, sign it, scan it, and email it back to you.
You will simply print it out and attach it with your application. Just keep in mind that if the letter is in a foreign language, you will need to get it translated prior to submission, since everything you're including with your application must be translated.
Another quick comment here is that based on our understanding of the USCIS and how they operate, when a US citizen writes a letter, it has maybe a bit more weight than when a non-citizen writes it.
That's just the shortcoming of this system. but it also makes some sense since, again, anyone could write a letter and the USCIS would have a hard time verifying it.
And this also brings us to the next question we often get, and that is, should these letters be notarized?
The answer is yes. These letters should be notarized to make them look legitimate, and here's why.
As far as the USCIS is concerned, technically anyone could write this letter, but when your friend or family member goes and notarizes it, the notary will check their ID and they will sign it in front of that notary public, so the USCIS will know exactly who wrote that letter.
Make sure they also include their ID, again, to make it look more legitimate. If they're getting it notarized, the notary will be able to attach the copy of their ID as well.
Just know that they can notarize it for free at their local bank, and it normally takes no more than 5 minutes of their time. I know you can also notarize documents at UPS stores and even online.
We've done quite a few of those online, and it's super fast and efficient, but you will have to pay around $20 to $30 for an online service.
An important comment to make here is that all of this information that we're sharing here comes from our direct practical experience dealing with the USCIS, but if you have a different approach to these letters, or if you have any specific questions about how to best prepare them, please drop them in the comments and we will get back to you.
All right, so to the final point here. Should you include copies or originals of these letters with your application?
It's a very valid question because you will be attaching copies of everything. But when it comes to these letters, you will be attaching originals unless your letters are coming from overseas, far away, and it's simply not practical to send them as an original.
If you're including 4 letters, at least 2 of them should be original letters, notarized and with the IDs attached to them.
Unless, of course, you are filing your I-130 online, which, by the way, we aren't the biggest fans of this whole online filing thing, and we made a detailed video on this, which you can check here. But if you're doing it online, you can scan these letters and attach them inside your USCIS online account, and then bring originals to your interview if you have one.
That's it for this video. Thank you for watching.
Subscribe, click the bell, drop your questions in the comments, and we look forward to seeing you next time.